Om Mahaganapataye Namaha. How to distract yourself in ways that lead to a better life. So right now, a lot of people are spending a lot of time at home, and I'm seeing a lot of things on social media and in general about people are, drinking or watching movies and all these things while we have all this extra free time on our hands. And I want to offer to you some explanation on what is the concept, why are we so often going out for things, and how to distract yourself in a way that is productive. So in general, here's the gist of why we're distracting ourselves. See, in the beginning, we were supposedly have living in a perfected state. This is the Adam and Eve thing where we had this perfect consciousness, we were in total bliss, and we got ourselves in trouble when we went after the fruit of knowledge, which is, Dr. White talks about the logic and the rationality and the desire to know. How does this work? All these things instead of just enjoying complete bliss. So what happens is when that bliss is taken away, right? We have a sort of a hole, and we take our attention from the inward happiness, and then we turn it outwards into seeking for pleasures. So it's sort of like it creates like an agitation where you're constantly trying to fill the hole with movies, food, any kind of pleasure at all you can imagine. Is they say is like a very tiny flittering of the whole bliss that we have within ourselves. And now the difference between happiness and pleasures is this: pleasures are fleeting and they don't last. Happiness is the permanent happiness that requires no external stimulation. So I would like to encourage you, or at least offer to you, and try to inspire you, as you can distract yourself. When I say distractions, that's often a word used to say, oh, when you're off, watching a movie and you totally lose your awareness and conscious. We call that as a distraction. You're just trying to distract yourself from being unhappy. That's the concept of distraction. We're unhappy, and to help make ourselves happy because that's been taken away, so which is the fall. We go and try to find ways to distract ourselves from that lack of happiness. So there are ways you can distract yourself in positive and productive ways that will lead you to rekindling or reclaiming that inner happiness and joy, according to the yogis, mystics, siddhas, perfected beings, and the masters. So use this time also to engage in meditation, not just meditation. Now, I want to also make a point that I'm not talking about boring things. When you learn how to really meditate, you'll find that it's not a boring thing that you have to go, oh, I got to go meditate and drag yourself. You will actually, I'm just speaking from personal experience as well. You will find yourself waiting. Oh, the day's almost over. I can go and meditate, or I can wake up earlier so I can meditate longer, because that's when you tap into like a different space, a different dimension of yourself. It's so enjoyable. I can't express it. It's something that you have to experience for yourself, but I can assure you it is so satisfying. It can be so satisfying that you will prefer to do it, if you can even imagine, over having a nice meal, over going to watch a movie, or going to hang out with your friends. I know it may seem crazy, but at one point, it will get to a point when you get in your practice that you actually will start enjoying meditation even more than that. It sounds crazy, but it's true. I can tell you for sure it's possible. So not just meditation, though. One thing that I love to do, and I'll invite you to, is getting into reading about archetypes or mythologies. Dr. White calls it as mythotherapy, and the theory is that mythologies aren't arbitrary stories. In the yogic and the Siddha tradition, they're considered to be history, but so much more. Basically, what the mystics did is they took these stories, and which are stories of the soul, because archetypes, after all, the gods and goddesses, the pantheons, they're not random beings who just popped up out of nowhere. They represent principles of the divine soul. And a more precise level, you have our conscious mind, and then what is called as the unconscious mind, which is where everything merges, or the field of unified theory, I think it's called in quantum physics, where all the fluctuations of diversity or dichotomy all cease and merge into a singularity. That singularity is what it's a scientific term for God. And from that singularity, you have the highest potencies of, say, wealth conscious or wealth expression of God, symbolized as the god or goddess or angel of wealth. Similarly, you have the god or goddess of immortality and so on. They represent pure expressions of the highest potency of different aspects of God or principles. And so their mythologies are a manifestation or an expression of that uh, expression, if you will. So the interactions, all these things is actually something that's going on inside of us, in other words. So, for example, when you have the story of, say, the archetype Muruga. Muruga is a being who's typically associated with different things, wisdom, and also destruction of dark forces. His birth was about being born to kill these demons that nobody else could kill. Now, this is told as a mythology, but on the inside, because there's different layers to these, they're all symbolic. It's about the birth of wisdom, or the opening of the third eye, which Muruga represents. The weapon he carries is the veil, which represents the Kundalini Shakti. And the demons he's killing are all the demons that prevent us from realizing our full enlightenment, such as the demons of laziness or ignorance, or the demon of the ego. All these different demons are personifying lower traits or lower expressions of the human ego, or ungodly like things. So, in other words, when you're reading these stories, why they're therapeutic, why he calls them as mythotherapy, is they're a language of the subconscious and unconscious mind. So they are coded and rich with symbolic meanings that, even though your conscious mind is not aware of as you're reading them, your subconscious and unconscious mind, so it's activating different parts of your consciousness, and eventually they will percolate to the top, is the theory. And by engaging yourself, so if you're going to use a meditation or mantra and work with a certain being, then you go and read about that being. It's sort of like you're approaching it from different aspects and immersing yourself in that archetype that you want to embody or express in your conscious mind. And working with archetypes, after all, is simply um, downloading or uploading potencies of intelligence from your unconscious mind into your conscious mind. What makes us seem to be unique and diverse and different is really our conscious mind, or our identity. That is to say, all beings have access to the same amount of intelligences, the same amount of potencies that can be expressed in a human form or in general. However, we, through our karma, we have solidified or crystallized only a very narrow bandwidth of these, and by working with archetypes, divine archetypes, is a technology or a science that has been used by the mystics for thousands of years. And Carl Jung, even the father of modern psychology, has a term. He's the one who coined the term, I believe, is archetype. It's a blueprint of consciousness, the state of being conscious as opposed to unconscious. So engage in things like that. Engage in meditation. Engage in chanting with mantras. Engage in community events that could participate in bringing peace, prosperity to the world. I'll share a link in the description of events that Pali Center has going on. But in general, try to distract yourself in ways. Reading the epics are fantastically entertaining. Like, for example, Mahabharata. I'm totally into that one right now. That if you read the full one, there are so many stories within that story that it just goes on and on. It's just fantastic. You have the Ramayana. You have I think in the Greek tradition, I forget tradition, you have the Epic of Gilgamesh. You have the Great Odyssey. You have all these different mythological epics that are from these different cultures that are, according to yogis mystics, actual historical accounts of a different age when things like magic and all these things that seem like in the mythological creatures, when all that stuff was real, because it was a different age. And see, we, according to them, we live, there's different ages. We're in there what's called the Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga is the age of darkness, and we're in the process of transitioning from Kali Yuga into what's called Satya Yuga, or the Golden Age, or the Age of Truth, which has been predicted in all the cultures across the world. So we'll come to realize at one point that our history has been very much confused, and we've been sort of lied to and not told the entire truth about our true history. So engage in that. It's entertaining. Look at meditations. Look at the angel. Try to find, the angel or the god or goddess that you connect with, because often you'll have, once you open your mind up to it, there's probably somebody trying to get a hold of you right now. And by just opening your mind to it and sort of looking around, you'll be guided to look at certain things. You may have certain dreams. This happens to me as well. You may have dreams with beings or dreams with symbols that'll lead you to like clues. And it's a fun and entertaining, and it's sort of like an adventure, if you will. It's an adventure, an exploration of consciousness. And what you'll find is, after all, the movies, the food, all the other things, you'll get to a point where it's like, God, it's like they don't last, and you'll start to have a craving for something a little more permanent, something that once you, in other words, once you taste, is really what it comes down to. Once you taste the inner happiness, just a little taste of it, you'll begin to understand and why the yogis would like drop everything and then go off and then just focus on going after that. Not to say that that's the best way. Dr. Ply and I am also for this is you need a balance. You need to have balance of both. And after all, if you have to live as a human, why not live like a king? And so back in the old days, the kings were enlightened. That's how it was like the Mahabharata, for example. A lot of these kings were enlightened beings. They call them as Raja Rishis or king seers. They weren't just normal kings like our presidents our politicians of nowadays. These were actual enlightened beings who had supernormal powers, supernormal intuition, supernormal insights, a direct connection with gods and goddesses they can talk to. Fantastic, and that's kind of what we're going back towards. So anyways, hopefully this is a inspiring and profitable distraction for you. And if you have any feedback or questions, as always, please leave a comment below this video. And if you want to be notified for future videos, click subscribe and the bell notification. God bless.